Picture this, it's 2025, and Sarah is getting married in 3 months. Her 4 bridesmaids, all successful professional women in their mid-30s, are having their final dress fitting. But here's the twist that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Every single one of them is secretly taking a weight loss injection that they obtained through an online telehealth service, claiming that they weighed over 200 pounds when they're actually closer to 140. They're using fake names, lying about their weight, and paying cash for compounded versions of drugs that cost over $1,000 a month. They never met the doctor who prescribed them, and they're injecting themselves with medications manufactured in facilities that may or may not meet FDA standards. And they're not alone. This is happening at wedding parties, college reunions, and social gatherings across America every single weekend. Welcome to the underground economy of GLP-1 anti-obesity drugs, a shadow market that increases the size of the reported $71 billion official market. We're not just talking about people with obesity getting legitimate medical care. We're talking about a cultural phenomenon that's reshaping our entire relationship with food, our bodies, and frankly, what it means to be human in an age of abundance. But here's what makes this story absolutely fascinating from a manufacturing perspective. We're not just witnessing a medical breakthrough. We're watching the entire pharmaceutical supply chain get stress tested like never before. When those bridesmaids are getting their injections from compounding pharmacies, they're essentially participating in an unregulated parallel manufacturing ecosystem that sprung up to meet the demand that the traditional pharmaceutical industry simply couldn't handle. Think about it. Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, 2 of the most sophisticated pharmaceutical manufacturers on the planet, have been struggling for 3 years to keep up with demand. The FDA only just declared the shortage resolved in February 2025. That's 3 years of patients being unable to get their medications, 3 years of people turning to questionable alternatives, and 3 years of the manufacturing industry scrambling to build capacity for drugs that require precision engineering at every step. This isn't like manufacturing aspirin, folks. These are complex biological molecules. Each injection pen contains exactly the right dose delivered through a sophisticated system. And yet somehow, Sarah's bridesmaids are getting their hands on versions of these drugs that may or may not contain the right active ingredients, may or may not be sterile, and may not actually work. It's like trying to buy a Ferrari from someone operating out of their garage. You might get something that looks right, but do you really want to bet your life on it? But this story isn't just about the risks of an underground market. It's about a transformation so profound that it's changing everything from how restaurants design their menus to how snack food companies plan for their futures. We're talking about a potential 3% reduction in total caloric demand across America. That's 20 billion fewer calories consumed every day. To put that in perspective, that's like making an entire major food category disappear overnight. Welcome to Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore, and today we're diving into what might be the most significant medical, social, and manufacturing revolution since the discovery of antibiotics. But unlike penicillin, which saved us from infectious diseases, GLP-1s are promising to save us from ourselves, from our evolutionary programming that drives us to overeat in a world where calories are infinite, but our Stone Age brains haven't caught up. We're going to explore not just the science behind these revolutionary drugs, but the manufacturing challenges that are reshaping how we think about pharmaceutical production. We're going to dive into why some of the smartest engineers in the world are working on problems like, how do you manufacture a drug that's more complex than insulin, needs to be stored cold throughout the supply chain, and has to be delivered through a device that's foolproof enough for someone to use it in their bathroom at home without fainting from using the needles. You know who I'm talking about. We'll look at how cloud-based manufacturing execution systems are becoming absolutely critical for tracking every molecule from production to injection, ensuring that whether you're getting your GLP-1 from a legitimate pharmacy or from that sketchy compounding operation, someone somewhere knows exactly what went into making it. Because here's the thing, this revolution is just getting started. Those bridesmaids injecting themselves in secret, they're the early adopters. The real transformation happens when these drugs become as common as blood pressure medications, when the pills hit the market in 2026 or 2027, and when the manufacturing industry figures out how to produce them safely, efficiently, and affordably for hundreds of millions of people worldwide. We're not just watching the pharmaceutical industry evolve, we're witnessing the birth of an entirely new category of human enhancement technology. And the companies that figure out how to manufacture these treatments at scale with perfect quality control and at accessible prices, They're going to be the ones that literally reshape human civilization. So buckle up, because we're about to explore how a diabetes drug became a cultural phenomenon, why manufacturing these medications is harder than building rocket ships, and how the future of human health might just depend on the engineers working behind the scenes to make sure every dose is perfect every time. Let's dive in. Let me break down how these revolutionary drugs actually work, because understanding the science will help you appreciate why manufacturing them is about as easy as building a Swiss watch while blindfolded. Your small intestine naturally produces a hormone called GLP-1. Think of it as your body's internal food police. When you eat, this hormone does 3 incredibly smart things. It tells your pancreas to release just the right amount of insulin. It tells your liver to stop dumping sugar into your bloodstream. And most importantly for weight loss, it sends a signal to your brain saying, hey, we're good here, put down the fork. The problem is, your natural GLP-1 hormone has the attention span of a goldfish. It gets broken down by an enzyme called DPP-4 in about 2 minutes. It's like hiring a security guard who takes a smoke break every 5 minutes. Not very effective for long-term crowd control. Here's where the pharmaceutical wizardry comes in. Scientists figured out how to modify this hormone so it sticks around for days instead of minutes. They attached what's essentially a molecular anchor, a fatty acid chain that makes the hormone bind to albumin in your blood. It's like giving that security guard a really comfortable chair and a long-term contract. But here's where manufacturing gets tricky. These are complex biological molecules that are more temperamental than a Hollywood diva. Semaglutide, the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy, is a 31 amino acid synthetic peptide that has to be folded exactly right or it doesn't work at all. The manufacturing process starts with genetically modified bacteria or yeast that have been programmed to produce these peptides. Think of it like programming 3D printers, except instead of printing plastic trinkets, they're printing life-saving medications. These synthetic peptides need to be formulated to release slowly over time, requiring sophisticated control-release technology. The injection pens themselves are marvels of engineering. They need to deliver exactly the right dose, keep the drug stable, and be foolproof enough that someone can use them safely at home. The newer dual agonist drugs, like Tirzepatide, add another layer of complexity. They target both GLP-1 and GIP receptors. Imagine trying to hit 2 different locks with 1 key, except both locks are microscopic and inside your body. The manufacturing precision required makes Formula 1 engineering look like Lego assembly. Now let's dive into why manufacturing these drugs has been giving pharmaceutical executives nightmares for the past 3 years. First, let's talk about those injection pens you see everywhere. They're not just fancy syringes, they're precision medical devices. Each pen has to deliver exactly the right dose, maintain drug stability for weeks at refrigerator temperatures, and be simple enough that your grandmother could use it without accidentally injecting air bubbles or the wrong amount into them. Companies like Ypsomed and Owen Mumford are manufacturing millions of these devices, and each one contains dozens of components that have to work together perfectly. The needle insertion mechanism, the dose setting dial, the safety locks, the cartridge system. If any single component fails, the entire device is useless. And remember, each pen contains a biological drug that costs thousands of dollars to manufacture. But here's where it gets really interesting from a manufacturing execution perspective. When Novo Nordisk was struggling with shortages, they had to bring in multiple contract manufacturing partners: Catalent, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Ypsomed. Suddenly, you had a complex web of suppliers all making different components of the same product. How do you ensure quality and traceability across this entire network? This is where cloud-based manufacturing execution systems become absolutely critical. Every single batch of drug substance, every injection pen component, every fill-finish operation has to be tracked in real time. We're talking about systems that monitor hundreds of parameters simultaneously: temperature, pressure, pH levels, peptide concentration, endotoxin levels, particulate matter. If any parameter drifts even slightly out of specification, the entire batch could be ruined. And we're not just talking about tracking during manufacturing. These systems have to maintain complete traceability from raw materials through patient injection. When a patient in Minnesota reports a side effect, manufacturers need to be able to trace that dose back to the specific cell culture batch. the exact fermentation run, the individual purification column, and even which technician performed the final inspection. It's like having a molecular level GPS tracking system. The serialization requirements are mind-boggling. Every single pen, every carton, every shipping container gets a unique identifier that's tracked through the entire supply chain. The manufacturing execution systems have to coordinate with packaging lines, distribution centers, and pharmacy systems to ensure that counterfeit products can't enter the supply chain. With these drugs costing over $1,000 per month, the incentive for counterfeiting is enormous. Let's talk about the supply shortage crisis that lasted from 2022 to early 2025. Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly weren't just dealing with higher demand, they were dealing with manufacturing processes that couldn't easily scale up. You can't just build a bigger fermenter and expect to get more product. Biological manufacturing is all about maintaining perfect conditions, and as you scale up, controlling those conditions becomes exponentially more difficult. The cold chain requirements add another layer of complexity. These drugs have to be kept between 36 and 46 degrees Fahrenheit from the moment that they're manufactured until the moment that they're injected. This means refrigerated trucks, temperature monitored warehouses, and pharmacy refrigerators all have to work perfectly. If the temperature goes up too high, the peptides denature and become useless. Too low, and they can freeze, which also destroys them. Manufacturing execution systems are monitoring this entire cold chain in real time. If a refrigerated truck breaks down in Kansas, the system needs to identify immediately all the affected lots, calculate how long they've been exposed to elevated temperatures, and determine whether they're still safe to use. It's like playing three-dimensional chess while riding a unicycle. The FDA's recent announcement that the Semaglutide shortage is resolved represents a massive manufacturing achievement. It means that companies have finally built enough capacity with sufficient quality controls to meet the current demand. But this resolution only happened after years of investment in new facilities, new manufacturing execution systems, and complex supply chain coordination. The acquisition of Catalent by Novo Holdings was particularly interesting from a manufacturing perspective. Catalent is a world-class CDMO with extensive small molecule, biologics, and cell and gene therapy expertise and over 50 global manufacturing facilities. Catalent dramatically scaled up their fill-finish facilities during the COVID pandemic, making them invaluable to a company like Novo Nordisk with an insatiable need for filling semaglutide GLP-1s into sterile vials for their syringe delivery devices. 3 of these fill-finish facilities were transferred from Novo Holdings to Novo Nordisk proper after the acquisition, including Bloomington, Indiana, Anagni, Italy, and Brussels, Belgium. Catalent may be even more interesting to Novo with their massive global small molecule manufacturing capacity to allow Novo to get an early jump in multiple regions when the entire industry transitions from liquid injectables to anti-obesity pills, with Wegovy and amycretin tablets about to wrap up clinical trials and a planned release to the market expected in the 2026-2027 timeframe. Novo Nordisk has an enormous advantage here as they acquired existing capacity through the Catalent acquisition, where Eli Lilly is building a number of new multi-billion-dollar mega facilities where the new facilities may eventually be more efficient and produce larger quantities at lower unit costs, but they won't come online for a few years and still require commissioning, which will allow Novo to build up a huge market share lead in the interim. But here's the really fascinating part. Even with all this manufacturing complexity, the underground compounding market has still been thriving. Small compounding pharmacies are making their own versions of these drugs, often without sophisticated quality controls or traceability systems that the major manufacturers use. It's like having artisanal moonshine being made in someone's basement while Jack Daniels is building billion-dollar distilleries with computer-controlled everything. As we move forward, the manufacturing challenge is only going to get more complex. Oral formulations, new delivery methods, personalized dosing, each innovation requires new manufacturing capabilities and even more sophisticated tracking systems. The appeal of an oral GLP-1 is obvious. No more weekly injections, no more refrigerated storage, no more injection pens that cost more than most people's rent. Just pop a pill and get the same appetite suppression and weight loss. It sounds simple, but the manufacturing reality is like trying to deliver an ice cube through a blast furnace. Remember, many of the most popular GLP-1 drugs are synthetic peptides, and your digestive system shreds peptides in a highly acidic environment. It's like trying to mail a letter made of cotton candy through a car wash. The challenge isn't just getting the drug to survive stomach acid, it's getting enough of it to survive and be absorbed to actually work. Novo Nordisk cracked this code first with oral semaglutide, but their solution is basically pharmaceutical engineering on steroids. The oral tablets have to be manufactured in a way that protects the drug from stomach acid, ensures the snack and semaglutide are in exactly the right ratio, and releases everything at precisely the right time and placed in your digestive system. They combine semaglutide with something called SNAC, sodium N8,2-hydroxybenzole amino caprylate, an absorption enhancer that temporarily opens up pathways through your stomach lining. The manufacturing precision required for this is absolutely insane. First, you have to manufacture the semaglutide to the exacting standards as the injectable version. Then you have to manufacture the snack. Then you have to combine them in exactly the right ratios, compress them into tablets that protect the drug from moisture and light, and ensure that when the tablet dissolves in someone's stomach, everything releases at exactly the right time and in exactly the right proportions. That's why patients have to take oral semaglutide on an empty stomach and wait 30 minutes before eating anything. The manufacturing process creates this incredibly precise delivery system, but it's so delicate that even a glass of orange juice can destroy its effectiveness. Now let's talk about the next generation of oral GLP-1s, because this is where things get really interesting. Eli Lilly's orforglipron represents a completely different approach. Instead of trying to protect the synthetic peptide as it goes through your digestive system, they've created a small molecule that mimics what the hormone does. The small molecule approach is much more stable, doesn't need special absorption enhancers, and can be manufactured using traditional pharmaceutical processes instead of biological manufacturing. Lilly just announced that orforglipron showed in phase 3 clinical trials statistically significant weight loss and blood sugar control. This is huge because it proves the small molecule approach can work, but from a manufacturing perspective, it's even more exciting because small molecules are dramatically easier to make and scale. Traditional pharmaceutical manufacturing for small molecules is like a well-oiled machine that's been perfected over decades. You can make these drugs in massive quantities. They're stable at room temperature, and quality control processes are very straightforward. No cell cultures, no protein purification, no cold chain requirements. But here's where Pfizer's story becomes a cautionary tale. They were developing their own oral GLP-1 called danuglipron, and it was showing good efficacy results. But in their dose optimization studies, one patient developed potential drug-induced liver injury. Just one patient out of over 1,400 in their safety database. While the patient was asymptomatic and recovered completely, the single case was enough for Pfizer to discontinue the program, highlighting the extremely high safety standards required for new drug approvals in competitive therapeutic areas. With small molecules, you're introducing something entirely foreign, and even tiny impurities or unexpected metabolites can cause serious problems. From a manufacturing execution system perspective, oral drugs require completely different tracking and quality control systems. Instead of monitoring cell culture parameters and protein folding, you're tracking chemical synthesis reactions, crystalline structure, dissolution rates, and tablet hardness. The manufacturing execution systems have to ensure that every batch meets incredibly tight specifications for chemical purity and pharmaceutical performance. The manufacturing economics are also completely different. Once you've figured out the chemistry, small molecules can be made in massive quantities relatively cheaply. That's why generic drugs are so inexpensive. The manufacturing process is scalable and efficient. Oral GLP-1s could potentially be made for dollars per month instead of hundreds of dollars. Lilly is targeting regulatory approval for orforglipron in 2025 for diabetes and 2026 for weight loss. Other companies are racing to catch up, but the manufacturing complexity means that only companies with serious pharmaceutical expertise are likely to succeed. The really interesting question is what happens when oral GLP-1s become available. Will people stick with the injections that they know work, or will they switch to the convenience of pills? From a manufacturing perspective, companies are preparing for both scenarios. They're building capacity for both biological and chemical manufacturing because nobody knows for sure which approach will ultimately dominate the market. What's clear is that the company that figures out how to manufacture effective, safe, convenient oral GLP-1s at scale is going to own a massive market. We're talking about potentially hundreds of millions of people worldwide who could benefit from these medications, and oral delivery could make them accessible to populations that would never consider injections. Right now, we're watching one of the most fascinating David and Goliath stories in pharmaceutical history. Except there are multiple Davids slinging rocks at two very well-established Goliaths, and the market is so massive that there's probably room for everybody to win. Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly currently dominate this space like two heavyweight champions who've been trading the belt back and forth. Novo has Ozempic for diabetes and Wegovy for weight loss, both based on semaglutide. Lilly has Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for weight loss, both based on Tirzepatide. Between them, they've created a market that hit $71 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $100 billion by 2030. But here's what's fascinating from a manufacturing perspective. Both companies have been struggling to keep up with demand. It's like having the two best restaurants in town, but with lines around the block every single day for 3 years straight. No matter how much they expand their kitchens, they can't cook fast enough. This has created an unprecedented opportunity for smaller companies to enter the market. Normally, taking on pharmaceutical giants is like trying to compete with Amazon by starting an online bookstore in your garage. But when the giants simply can't meet the demand, suddenly there's space for newcomers. Enter Viking Therapeutics, a small biotech company that's become the poster child for this opportunity. Their drug, VK2735, is showing remarkable results, up to 14.7% weight loss in 13 weeks, which is comparable to or better than the established drugs. But here's what's really interesting. Viking is planning to skip phase 2B trials and go directly to phase 3, which could get them to market years ahead of schedule. From a manufacturing standpoint, Viking faces enormous challenges. They're essentially a clinical stage company that needs to build pharmaceutical manufacturing capabilities from scratch. It's like going from making craft beer in your basement to suddenly needing to supply every bar in America. They've acknowledged that their current manufacturing capacity is nowhere near what they need for a commercial launch. This is exactly why analysts are betting that Viking will be acquired by a larger pharmaceutical company. Someone like Roche, which just spent $2.7 billion to acquire Carmot Therapeutics for their obesity pipeline, or Amgen, which is developing their own monthly injection called Maritide. These companies have the manufacturing infrastructure and regulatory expertise to actually bring Viking's drug to market. Speaking of Amgen's Maritide, this represents an interesting manufacturing innovation. Instead of weekly injections, it's designed to be given monthly. From a patient compliance perspective, this is huge. It's much easier to remember a monthly injection than a weekly one. But from a manufacturing perspective, it requires a completely different formulation approach to make the drug last 4 times longer in the body. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, Chinese manufacturers. Companies like Hansoh Pharma are developing their own GLP-1 drugs, and Merck just signed an exclusive global licensing deal for Hansoh's oral GLP-1 candidate, HS10535. This is significant because Chinese pharmaceutical manufacturing has evolved dramatically over the past decade. Chinese manufacturers are often willing to accept slightly lower yields or slightly less elegant processes if they get their products to market faster and cheaper. From a global manufacturing perspective, this could be revolutionary. If Chinese companies can manufacture effective GLP-1 drugs at a fraction of the cost of Western companies, it could democratize access to these treatments worldwide. But it also raises questions about quality control, regulatory oversight, and supply chain security. The manufacturing ecosystem is becoming increasingly complex. You've got the established players building massive new facilities, startups trying to figure out how to scale up, contract manufacturers like Catalent getting acquired to secure supply chains, and Chinese companies developing entirely different approaches to the same problems. And then there's the wild card of compounding pharmacies. While the major pharmaceutical companies have been struggling with shortages, hundreds of compound pharmacies have been making their own versions of these drugs. The FDA estimates that during the shortage period, compounded versions represented a significant portion of the total market. From a manufacturing execution systems perspective, this creates a fascinating contrast. The major pharmaceutical companies are using systems that track every molecule from production to patient, while many compounding pharmacies are using relatively simple processes and quality controls. This raises important questions about manufacturing philosophy. The competitive landscape is also being shaped by different delivery approaches. Novo and Lilly are focused both on injection pens and oral delivery. Viking is focused on oral tablets. Amgen is pursuing monthly dosing, and multiple companies are also working on oral formulations. Each approach requires completely different manufacturing capabilities and supply chain strategies. What's really interesting is that this isn't a winner-take-all market. The total addressable population is so large, potentially hundreds of millions of people worldwide with obesity or diabetes, that multiple companies can succeed with different approaches. It's like the early days of the automotive industry, when different companies were trying completely different approaches to the same basic transportation problem. The companies that will ultimately succeed are those that can solve the manufacturing challenges at scale while maintaining quality and affordability. That requires not just good science, but sophisticated manufacturing execution systems, robust supply chains, and the ability to navigate complex regulatory environments across multiple countries. We're not just talking about a new class of medications here, folks. We're talking about a fundamental shift in human behavior that can reshape society in ways we're only beginning to understand. And the numbers are staggering. Let's start with the public health potential. America has a 42% obesity rate. That's nearly half the adult population. When you add in people who are overweight, we're talking about 73% of American adults. This isn't just a personal health issue anymore. It's a national crisis that's bankrupting our healthcare system and reducing our life expectancy. But here's where GLP-1s could change everything. If just 20% of obese adults use these medications and achieve the 15 to 20% weight loss we're seeing in clinical trials, we could see the obesity rate drop to levels we haven't seen since the 1990s. That's not just individual transformation, that's societal transformation. The economic impact on the food industry is already being felt. Research from Cornell shows that households with GLP-1 users reduce their grocery spending by about 5.5% within 6 months. That might not sound like much, but when you scale it across millions of users, we're talking about billions of dollars in reduced food consumption. EY, formerly Ernst & Young, estimates that GLP-1 adoption could reduce sales in the snack food industry by up to $12 billion. Salty snacks are seeing the biggest hit, down 11% among GLP-1 users. Sweet baked goods are down 6.7%. It's like someone suddenly turned down the volume on America's appetite for junk food. But here's what's really fascinating. It's not just about eating less. Users report fundamental changes in their food preferences. They're losing their cravings for ultra-processed food, sugary drinks, and high-fat snacks. It's like the drugs are rewiring their brain's reward systems to prefer healthier foods. Restaurant chains are already adapting. Smoothie King has launched a GLP-1 support menu. Other restaurants are reviewing proportion sizes and flavors. McDonald's claims they haven't seen an impact yet, but industry analysts are skeptical. When 70% of GLP-1 users report significant changes in their eating behavior, including eating more at home versus at restaurants, it's hard to believe the industry won't feel it. However, we need to address a serious concern that's emerging as more people use these medications. Recent studies published in the Annals of Internal Medicine show that GLP-1 users are ending up in emergency departments at concerning rates. While the overall risk is low, about 4 ER visits per 1,000 patients, the reasons are troubling and often preventable. About 70% of these emergency visits are for gastrointestinal distress, severe nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. Another 16.5% are for dangerously low blood sugar episodes, which is particularly concerning because these drugs aren't supposed to cause hypoglycemia when used alone. This suggests that many patients aren't getting proper medical supervision, especially those using compounded versions from online pharmacies. The real issue here is that too many people are treating GLP-1s like diet pills instead of understanding them as medical interventions that require lifestyle changes. Without proper guidance, patients often continue their previous eating patterns, just eating less of the same problematic foods. This leads to nutritional deficiencies, gastrointestinal distress, and potentially dangerous metabolic complications. Here's the critical point that many patients and even some healthcare providers are missing. GLP-1s work by essentially creating an artificial gastric restriction, similar to gastric bypass surgery. But unlike surgery, which forces immediate behavioral changes, the medication allows people to maintain old habits until their body rebels. Patients need to understand that these drugs require complete restructuring of their relationship with food. The most successful GLP-1 users follow a disciplined eating schedule of 6 or more small meals throughout the day, focusing on high-protein, nutrient-dense foods. Without natural hunger cues to guide them, patients who don't plan their nutrition carefully often end up either undernourished or consuming foods that their slow digestive systems can't handle, leading to severe gastrointestinal symptoms that are sending people to emergency rooms. But when used properly, the transformation goes beyond just physical health. Users report unexpected benefits that nobody saw coming. They're drinking less alcohol, gambling less, shopping less compulsively. Some users have reported that long-standing addictions to alcohol, tobacco, and even opioids have become much easier to manage. This makes sense when you understand that GLP-1 receptors are found throughout the brain, not just in the areas that control appetite. These drugs are essentially modulating the brain's reward systems, making addictive behaviors less compelling. It's like having a built-in behavioral modification system. The implications for public health are enormous. We're not just talking about solving the obesity epidemic, we're potentially addressing multiple addiction-related public health crises simultaneously. The economic benefits could be staggering when you consider the healthcare costs associated with obesity, diabetes, heart disease, addiction treatment, and mental health services. From a longevity perspective, the data is encouraging. Obesity reduces life expectancy by 6 to 7 years on average. But the benefits of GLP-1s go beyond just weight loss. These drugs are showing cardiovascular benefits, kidney protection, and potentially even neuroprotective effects. We might be looking at medications that not only help people to live longer, but live healthier throughout their extended lifespans. The social implications are equally profound. Weight stigma has become a major social justice issue, and these medications could help level the playing field. When sustainable weight loss becomes medically achievable for most people, it challenges our cultural assumptions about willpower, personal responsibility, and moral character. But we also need to consider the equity issues. At over $1,000 per month, these medications are currently accessible primarily to affluent Americans or those with excellent insurance coverage. If we're going to realize the full societal benefits, we need to solve the accessibility problem. The manufacturing challenge becomes even more pronounced when you realize that the difference between widespread access and limited access depends entirely on our ability to produce these drugs efficiently and affordably. Every improvement in manufacturing efficiency, every innovation that reduces production costs, directly translates to more people having access to these potentially life-changing treatments. Now let's dive into the technology that's making this entire revolution possible, because behind every successful injection of Ozempic or Wegovy is a manufacturing execution system working overtime to ensure that what goes into your body is exactly what it's supposed to be. When we talk about cloud-based manufacturing execution systems for biologics manufacturing, we're talking about systems that make air traffic control look simple. These platforms are monitoring thousands of parameters simultaneously across multiple facilities, tracking every batch from initial cell culture through final patient delivery. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening in real time at a GLP-1 manufacturing facility. The manufacturing execution system is simultaneously monitoring the temperature and pH of dozens of bioreactors, tracking the purity levels of raw materials coming from suppliers all around the world, controlling the timing of complex purification sequences, and ensuring that every single injection pen gets filled with exactly the right amount of drug substance. But here's where it gets really sophisticated. These systems aren't just monitoring, they're predicting. Advanced AI algorithms analyze patterns in the manufacturing data to identify potential problems before they happen. If a bioreactor's pH starts trending in the wrong direction, the system can alert operators and even automatically adjust parameters to keep the batch on track. The supply chain optimization capabilities are mind-blowing. When you're dealing with drugs that expire, raw materials that have shelf lives measured in days, and global distribution networks that span dozens of countries, traditional supply chain management simply doesn't work. Cloud-based manufacturing execution systems can track every component in real time, predict demand across dozens of different markets, and optimize production scheduling to minimize waste while ensuring continuous supply. Let me give you a concrete example. When Novo Nordisk was dealing with their Wegovy shortage, their manufacturing execution systems had to coordinate production across multiple contract manufacturers while ensuring complete quality and regulatory compliance. The system tracks not just what gets manufactured, but who manufactured it, what batch of raw materials was used, what environmental conditions were present during production, and even which technician performed each critical step. Regulatory compliance automation is becoming absolutely critical as these drugs become global products. The FDA has different requirements than the European Medicines Agency, which has different requirements than regulatory agencies in Japan, China, and Brazil. The manufacturing execution system has to ensure that every batch meets the requirements for every market where it might be sold, and it has to maintain documentation that would satisfy auditors from any of these agencies. The serialization and anti-counterfeiting measures are particularly sophisticated. Every pen gets a unique identifier that's linked to its manufacturing history, distribution path, and even the specific patient who receives it. This creates an unbreakable chain of custody that makes counterfeiting essentially impossible. But here's where the technology gets really interesting. These systems are learning and improving constantly. Every batch provides data that helps optimize future batches. Every quality control test provides information that improves the predictive algorithms. It's like having a manufacturing system that gets smarter every time it makes a product. Real-time process monitoring is essential because biologics manufacturing is inherently more variable than traditional small molecule pharmaceutical manufacturing. When you're dealing with living cells producing complex proteins, small changes in conditions can have big effects on the final product. The manufacturing execution systems are constantly adjusting parameters to maintain optimal conditions and ensure consistent product quality. The data analytics capabilities are staggering. These systems are processing terabytes of data from every batch, looking at patterns and correlations that human operators might miss. They can identify that a particular supplier's raw material perform better at certain temperatures, or production yields are higher when certain technicians are working, or that specific environmental conditions lead to better product stability. Integration with existing healthcare systems is becoming increasingly important as these drugs become more widely prescribed. Looking toward the future, AI-driven manufacturing optimization is going to revolutionize how these drugs are made. Instead of following predetermined recipes, manufacturing systems will continuously optimize process parameters based on real-time data and predictive models. This could dramatically improve yields, reduce costs, and enhance product quality. Personalized dosing is another area where advanced manufacturing execution systems will be crucial. As we learn more about how different patients respond to different doses, manufacturing systems will need to be flexible enough to produce a wide variety of dose strengths and formulations. This requires sophisticated planning and scheduling capabilities that can optimize production across multiple product variants. The manufacturing flexibility that cloud-based systems provide is going to be essential as this market evolves. Companies need to be able to rapidly scale production up or down based on demand, introduce new formulations or delivery methods, and adapt to changing regulatory requirements. Traditional manufacturing systems simply aren't agile enough for this rapidly evolving market. From a quality assurance perspective, these systems are providing unprecedented visibility into the manufacturing process. Instead of relying on end product testing to ensure quality, companies can monitor quality in real time throughout the entire production process. This not only improves product quality, but also reduces waste and improves efficiency. The cloud-based architecture is particularly important for companies that are working with multiple contract manufacturers or have facilities in multiple countries. A single manufacturing execution system platform can provide unified visibility and control across a complex, distributed manufacturing network, ensuring consistent quality and compliance regardless of where the product is made. As we move toward more complex products, oral formulations, combination therapies, personalized treatments, the manufacturing technology will need to become even more sophisticated. The companies that invest in advanced manufacturing execution system capabilities now will be the ones that can adapt quickly to future opportunities and challenges in this rapidly evolving market. As we wrap up this deep dive into the GLP-1 revolution, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because what we're witnessing isn't just a new class of medications, it's the beginning of a fundamental transformation in how we approach human health and the manufacturing systems that support it. The timeline for mass adoption is accelerating faster than anyone predicted. We went from 5.5% of the US population using GLP-1s in October 2023 to 8.3% by July 2024. That's explosive growth, and we're still in the early adopter phase. When the oral formulations hit the market in 2026 or 2027, and when prices inevitably come down as patents expire and generics enter the market, we could see adoption rates that fundamentally alter the health profile of entire nations. But here's what gets me really excited about the future. Gene therapy approaches are already in development. Instead of requiring daily or weekly medications, researchers are working on treatments that could provide years or a lifetime of appetite control from a single injection. Imagine a world where obesity becomes as preventable as polio, where a simple treatment in childhood could protect someone from a metabolic disease for their entire life. The manufacturing implications of this future are staggering. We're not just talking about scaling up current production methods, we're talking about developing entirely new categories of manufacturing capabilities. Gene therapies require different production facilities, different quality control systems, and different distribution networks than traditional biologics. From a societal perspective, we might be looking at the end of the obesity epidemic within our lifetimes. That's not just management, but actual elimination of obesity as a major public health threat. The ripple effects would be enormous. Healthcare cost savings in the trillions of dollars, increased productivity, improved quality of life, and potentially significant increases in life expectancy. But let's be realistic about the challenges ahead. Manufacturing capacity is still the bottleneck. Even with the recent resolution of supply shortages, we're nowhere near having enough production capacity to serve the hundreds of millions of people worldwide who would benefit from these treatments. Building that capacity will require unprecedented coordination between pharmaceutical companies, contract manufacturers, and regulatory agencies. The accessibility challenge is equally daunting. At current prices, these medications are simply out of reach for most of the global population. the manufacturing industry has a moral imperative to solve the cost problem, because the full societal benefits of this technology can only be realized if it's accessible to everyone who needs it. This is where the manufacturing execution systems that we've been discussing become absolutely critical. Every improvement in manufacturing efficiency, every reduction in production cost, every innovation that increases yield or reduces waste directly translates to better access for patients. The engineers working on these systems aren't just optimizing production, they're democratizing access to life-changing healthcare. For companies in the manufacturing space, the opportunities are enormous. This isn't just about pharmaceutical manufacturing, it's about creating entirely new categories of precision manufacturing capabilities. The companies that develop expertise in biologics manufacturing, advanced manufacturing execution systems, cold chain logistics, and sophisticated quality control will be positioned to serve not just the GLP-1 market, but the entire next generation of advanced therapeutics. This is our moonshot moment. This is our chance to apply everything that we've learned about precision manufacturing, advanced technology systems, and global coordination to solve one of humanity's greatest challenges. The manufacturing revolution that's enabling the GLP-1 breakthrough is just the beginning of what becomes possible when we combine breakthrough science with engineering excellence. The best part, we're not just building a healthier future, we're proving that the manufacturing industry can be a force for tremendous good in the world. Every process we optimize, every efficiency we achieve, every innovation we develop brings us closer to a world where advanced medical treatments are accessible to everyone who needs them. Here's my call to action for everyone listening. This revolution needs your participation. If you're in the manufacturing space, start thinking about how your expertise could contribute to making these treatments more accessible. If you're in healthcare, start preparing for a world where sustainable weight loss becomes routine medical care. If you're in technology, start developing the systems and platforms that will support this new reality. For pharmaceutical companies, the message is clear. Invest in manufacturing technologies now. The companies that build advanced, flexible, scalable manufacturing capabilities will dominate the next decade of growth in this market. Those that rely on outdated systems and approaches will be left behind. For policymakers, the challenge is creating regulatory frameworks that encourage innovation while ensuring safety. We need systems that can adapt quickly to the new manufacturing approaches and delivery methods while maintaining the rigorous safety standards that patients deserve. For patients and families, the message is one of hope tempered with realism. These treatments represent genuine breakthroughs, but they work best when combined with lifestyle changes and proper medical supervision. The future we're building isn't one where technology replaces personal responsibility, it's one where technology makes healthier choices easier and more sustainable. The manufacturing revolution that's enabling the GLP-1 breakthrough is just the beginning. The same capabilities that are making it possible to produce complex biologics at scale will enable the next generation of personalized medicines, gene therapies, and advanced treatments for diseases we currently consider incurable. We're standing at an inflection point in human history. For the first time, we have the scientific knowledge and manufacturing capabilities to address some of humanity's most persistent health challenges. The obesity epidemic, which has been growing for decades, could be reversed within our lifetimes. The manufacturing systems that make this possible are advancing at an unprecedented pace. But realizing this potential requires unprecedented collaboration. Scientists, engineers, manufacturers, regulators, healthcare providers, and patients all need to work together to build the systems and infrastructure that will support this healthier future. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're not just talking about better treatments, we're talking about the possibility of eliminating suffering for hundreds of millions of people. We're talking about economic benefits that could extend for generations. We're talking about a future where children grow up in a world where obesity, diabetes, and metabolic diseases are historical curiosities rather than daily realities. The manufacturing industry has always been about making things better, faster, and more efficiently. Now we have the opportunity to make things that could literally save civilization from one of its greatest self-inflicted wounds. The GLP-1 revolution isn't just the beginning of what's possible when advanced manufacturing meets breakthrough science. The future is bright, the technology is advancing rapidly, and the need has never been greater. The only question is, how can we quickly build the manufacturing capabilities to make this healthier future a reality for everyone who needs it? The revolution has begun. The question now is whether we'll rise to the occasion to meet it. In an industry where precision and compliance are paramount, Apprentice's Tempo platform offers a cutting-edge manufacturing execution system solution. It's cloud-based, mobile-first, operator-centric, with the most intuitive UI in the industry, making it perfect for today's dynamic pharmaceutical manufacturing environments and for the production of the world's most complex drug products. Whether you're working on groundbreaking cell and gene therapies, biologics, or small molecules, Tempo provides a fully validated MES system that's both powerful and easy to use. It streamlines your processes, ensures compliance, and adapts to your specific manufacturing needs. So get off of paper batch records and discover how Apprentice's Tempo Manufacturing Cloud can transform your operations by visiting us at apprentice.io. Attention industry professionals, revolutionize your manufacturing process with the Apprentice Tempo Manufacturing Cloud, a manufacturing execution system built to streamline your operations, boost efficiency, and ensure compliance all in one powerful platform. Experience the future of manufacturing with our free 30-day trial. Scan the QR code on your screen now to unlock a world of innovation. Don't just keep pace, set the tempo as an industry leader with Apprentice. That's all for Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icons for notifications when new episodes drop. Please comment on if you have any additional topics you would like for me to cover in this space, and we'll see you next week for more Industry Insights.